All right, we're here at last. Final episode of Ahsoka.
The final episode.
Before we, get into it, I just want to, say how much I love the show, and it's been great talking about it and really exploring more than what the average person that hasn't seen any of other Star Wars stuff, gets to see. It's been really fun to experience Dave's pure creation and where he's taken it, and I enjoyed being here for the ride.
Oh yeah,
sure.
No, definitely up there. This top tier Star Wars content. So happy that we got to experience it, watch it all through, and hopefully we get more stuff like it. So.
Agreed. And now that Mr. Dave Filoni is now the chief content creator of Lucasfilms and I guess of Star Wars itself, hopefully that Ahsoka set kind of the pattern and it can only go from there. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we don't see, other people try to do their own thing and then end up being horrible about it. So.
Yeah. Well, shall we get to it? Episode 8. Here we go.
So
who wants to kick it off? Jason.
I can start. So we start off with the Night Sisters, and Morgan Elsbeth kind of goes through not like an initiation, but she gets new face paint and she's evolved to a higher tier in the Night Sister. I don't think it's ranks, but like in their family, their family situation.
Yeah, it kind of gives her more power, probably.
Yeah, very, very much like her magic is increased or become more powerful.
Her magic meter got increased.
Yeah.
Her magic.
And is it in the beginning of the episode they give her the blade?
Yeah, around the beginning of the episode. I don't know if it's right off the bat or a couple scenes in, but yeah.
But it's called Talzin.
Yeah.
Which, Lucas, you want to talk about that?
Well, I just think it's interesting because I mentioned this before, but we get to Peridia and then there's these 3 Night Sisters there, right? Who are like technically like the mothers, the real mothers, right? Or someone mentioned the grandmothers, right, of the Night Sisters. And Mother Talzin, as we know, is a very formidable Night Sister who has had great influence on Dathomir and everything. And it was just interesting to me that even though these beings, the 3 Night Sisters, are technically like the ancient, like almost primordial, like precursor beings, they named the blade after Mother Talzin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we don't know a lot about Mother Talzin. We know that she is a Night Sister and she was like the leader of like the Dathomir and sect and everything. So maybe that Talzin is like could be like a rank or something. But it was just interesting that the blade was called Talzin, even though they're like galaxies apart.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we don't know anything. To me, it was just interesting. I was like, oh, it's either they're just wanting to throw in Mother Talzin's name in there, or if it actually had like a reason for it to be that named, it could be something of the sort. But I just thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. And on the topic of getting new weapons, immediately we jump into Ezra back on the ship, who is building his own lightsaber. Well, building his 3rd lightsaber at this point.
3rd.
And I mean, that scene for me was epic, right? Growing up, you dream about building your own lightsaber. We had the opportunity to go to Disneyland and build our own lightsabers a little while ago, which was an epic experience. But yeah, watching Ezra again construct the lightsaber, he needs something, and then having some dialogue with him and Hu Yang about Kanan, right? And it was cool for Ezra, I think, to connect the dots that he's like, oh, there's just this droid here, and Ezra's got his little way of doing stuff, and he's like, who taught you how to build a lightsaber? And he's like, oh, my master did, Kanan. And then, Hu Yang talks about him at the Jedi Temple, which was cool. And then he gets the emitter piece, which was awesome, from Kanan's lightsaber, which was so sick. And then, he turns his lightsaber on, and it's blue. That was kind of crazy.
Blue was awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, it was dope to see Ahsoka go from green to blue.
Yeah.
That was Anakin, That was somehow he did that, right? But this one was like, he just built it and it went back to blue, which was the original, season 1, season 2 color.
Yeah.
no, I thought that it was cool, and I think a lot of it pays homage to the to his master Kanan, right? And a lot of the dialogue between him and Hu Yang, again, this recurring theme throughout Ahsoka is this connection between master and apprentice, right? And I wrote down, I think one of the big things that he says is the bond between a master and student is as rewarding as it is challenging. And I think it just sums it up, right? Kanan and Ezra had like crazy ups and downs, and that's what we've seen in the show. A lot of is Sabine and Ahsoka's relationship. We've seen Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship, and just the ups and downs and stuff. So even throughout all those challenges, you pay respect to where you came from, and you have a legacy that accompanies you from master to apprentice. And really, I mean, overarching the whole show too, the master and apprentice, George Lucas creating Star Wars and passing that down to Dave Filoni, right? So again, as a Star Wars fan and as a big Jedi fan, master and apprentice, like that checked all the boxes. That was super cool. So,
yeah. And I thought it was very good that Ezra didn't believe anything Hu Yang was saying until he gave him the emitter, and was like, "Yeah, I saved this from your master had one, and I saved one just in case. Like it's fitting that you have it." He's like, "Well, how did you do that?" He's like, "I told you, like." I trained I helped all the Jedi in the temple build their lightsabers. Like, I know exactly everything about your master's saber. Like, this makes perfect sense that your saber's like this. And it's cool because Ezra, has no background in that.
Yeah.
He has negative, like, zero background in anything related to the Jedi Order other than whatever Kanan's told him.
Right. And
so to hear that, it was probably eye-opening to, like, hey, like, Kanan, like, was part of something bigger than I ever, imagined. Even though in Rebels, Kanan's like, there used to be thousands of Jedi roaming the galaxy, and now there's just a few of us, right? But to, like, to hear another person say it, I'm sure that was, I mean, you watch his reaction, he was like, well, you knew my master? Like, you actually knew him, Really cool.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was awesome. And you kind of have that, master and apprentice dialogue kind of carry over into the next scene, right? He turns to talk to Sabine, and Sabine had left, right? Yeah. She was gone. And she walks outside, and Ahsoka's sitting there meditating, right? And then they have an awesome interaction, but...
Yeah, but right before that, remember, he looks over, like you said, and she's not there. And he looks back at Hu Yang and said, what happened? What did I miss? And Hu Yang's like, well, they had this huge falling out because Ahsoka didn't trust her, which we already talked about this. This should have totally been earlier, we thought, in the show. But he said Ahsoka didn't trust that she was going to be a Jedi for the right reasons because of what the Empire did to Mandalore. And she wanted kind of revenge. And so she didn't trust her, and she kind of just dropped her as a student. And that's kind of stunted their growth as their master and apprentice relationship, as well as their friendship. And so that was something we've been sitting on for...
Yeah.
Like, obviously we think, oh yeah, Sabine's stubborn, this makes sense. Oh yeah, Ahsoka's not herself, and she hasn't been for the entire live action. This makes sense why they're butting heads.
Right.
It's like, oh, actually, there's this overlying thing that we should have known about 5 hours of content prior,
Right, and that's where, I mean, we, like you said, mentioned that. It's just, it goes to show, like, that would have put so much more depth onto the reason why, because we were left guessing. And honestly, in my opinion, that wasn't the right call. Like, I didn't want to guess why Ahsoka and Sabine was like, we're having a fallout all the way up until the finale, right? It's like, if you would have told us at the beginning, then it would have given a lot more emotion to this whole, like, yeah, Ahsoka is kind of bummed out because then we kind of see aspects. I mean, it all kind of comes into a circular loop. It comes back to the beginning when Hu Yang tells Ezra that, and then we go, that's why. We don't want her, she didn't want to train her into revenge. She didn't want to train her so that she could be like, she would turn into her master, or turn into her in a sense. She wanted her to be better. And yeah, so like that, and that was cool. I kind of know what you're saying. My opinion about the whole scene was just, it was amazing. Like the whole like interactions between, again, I'm very one for nostalgia, and have Hu-Wei like talking about Caleb Doom, right? And even just like Kanan Jarrus, like that's what Sabine comes in and goes, oh yeah, Kanan Jarrus, and he goes, oh, I know who that is, and he goes, oh, young Caleb, right? And he like name drops him that way, and it was super cool. Like the whole thing was super nostalgic. But going on what you were saying, like when he says that line where he goes, Ezra goes, "How old are you really?" And he goes, "I'm old enough to know that the relationship between master and apprentice is as challenging as it is rewarding." And then it pans over to Ahsoka, or to Ahsoka, to Sabine, and Sabine goes, like, she starts like realization dawns, and then it cuts back to them, and then when Ezra looks back and just like Sabine, like go and talk to Sabine, then that whole interaction happens, and then it cuts to the scene where Ahsoka's meditating, and then you go to see like she finally understands what has been going on, and Sabine and Ahsoka have that mature relationship again. Like the pieces just connect, and they're like their relationship between master and apprentice is like reforged, basically.
Yeah, it just hurt that it almost felt like in like that third and fourth episode that Ahsoka didn't want Ezra. Like it almost felt the way she's like, oh, if Thrawn's coming back, like it was almost like I'd rather have no good or no bad versus good and bad to come from this thing. Mm-hmm. So rather prevent everything than deal with both. And so like obviously as plot immunity would go to show, then nothing could happen to Ahsoka, but also like we were if at some point Ezra's going to show up, right? And so it worked out in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that big conversation you were leaning into this was probably arguably my favorite part of the episode. Sabine goes out to talk to Ahsoka on the wing of the ship while they're hovering with the little nomad people, and they it's them reconciling after Sabine thought she killed her, and they have this big fight, killing off these troopers, and they finally have a moment to like chill, and Sabine apologizes, which is not a Mandalorian thing. You don't ever really hear her apologize more than maybe 3 times in the entire Rebels show, genuinely, and to hear Ahsoka accept it, but without saying "I accept your apology," and tell her about. She pretty much tells us about what happened in season 5 of Clone Wars. You guys want to take it from
there? I mean, yeah, I think the whole thing is like she realizes again. Ahsoka has come on this journey of like, I've walked out on so many things, and even when I was at my wit's end, and no one believed in me, Anakin was there, right? And Anakin believed in me, right? When she was framed for bombing the Jedi Temple, right? Like the entire council turned against her, right? Yoda, Windu, like all these guys. Plo Koon, right? Who found her, Plo Koon. And so all these people, turn against her based on this evidence, but who like always had faith in her? Anakin, right? And who was out there like trying to clear her name was Anakin. And so, she comes to this realization and she says, Sabine, like my master always had my back, and like I really haven't always had your back, but like I'm a new person, right? Like I got you now, like maybe this wasn't like, maybe getting to this point we didn't do the right things, but like from here on out, like I'm with you, whatever you decide, that's what we're doing, I'll have your back.
And she talked a lot about like no one understood my decisions except for my master. Exactly. And that gave the vibe of Ahsoka saying, I know exactly why you did what you did, and New Republic doesn't know. They're not going to ever understand that, but I do. And, I mean, I would argue Hera knew. That's my argument, is that Hera is going to know. Mm-hmm. But yeah. I mean, no way, like, another symbolism of this, Kanan knew exactly what Ezra was going to do in Season 4 finale Rebels. Like, that was, like, the whole plan. Like, one last lesson. Like, how are you going to propel the rebellion by, like, using yourself? Like, what are you going to do,
Right. Are you willing to make
the sacrifice? Yeah.
Right, and I agree. Like I think it's so like in that part too, just about like Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship, comparing it to Sabine's. But it's just interesting because you just see the depth that they are willing to make, and further along in the episode we'll talk about it. That ends up causing a very like. Granted, like Sabine had she had to make a quick choice, right, later on in the episode. But because I'm assuming because of this conversation, it caused her to choose one choice over the other. Mm-hmm. And so, we'll talk about that later on. But I just thought that was super cool.
Yep. if you guys don't have, Jason, if you don't have anything else to add there, moving forward, Thrawn sends out some other ships to kind of attack their position where they're at, right? They end up damaging Ahsoka and Huyang's ship, and the ship actually comes down, and kind of like doesn't crash down, but starts sinking a little bit, And there was a cool part where, Ahsoka and Ezra are underneath the ship, holding it up with the Force, and I thought that was a pretty cool part. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, they're able to take out the 2 TIE fighters. Well, Sabine drops the clutch and takes out the 2 TIE fighters. Pretty cool. And then they're kind of stranded, right? So again, bringing the story kind of along. Thrawn's now taken out their fast transportation, right? They're all ready to go. They're all ready to fight. Ezra's got his lightsaber now, but they now don't have a ship, so they hop on the Howlers and they're headed towards the castle and everything to try and get off the planet. But again, Thrawn's always pulling the strings. He's like, I'm going to give them this little victory with Shin and with all these people, and then when they're relaxed and they're recuperating, that's when I'm going to hit them, and then they're going to have to come to me, right? So again, Thrawn playing to his strengths, putting them in the situation that he wants so that he can do the most damage. I thought, again, just classic Thrawn. So,
Agreed.
which brings us to the assault on the castle, right?
Yeah.
So
they get to the castle, and they start wiping out the troopers. Great fighting. I thought it was great.
Excellent fighting.
Great fighting.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, the Night Sisters start using the magic, and they just keep summoning them, right?
Yeah.
So it's a sprint to the finish. They're trying to just get past everyone until they run into Morgan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right before that, the Thrawn has a moment with Morgan, and he's like, "We need more time," pretty much saying, like, "You're our sacrifice. You stay behind and make sure we are fine." And it was cool to see that she did come to terms with it pretty quick. He's like, "Yeah, for the Empire, like, I can do this is my role. Like, I found my way that I can help."
Mm-hmm.
And I think she lived up to the hype of her fighting. I thought her and Ahsoka's fight was great.
Yeah.
She ended up just breaking one of Ahsoka's sabers, cutting it, slicing it with that Talzin blade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was an awesome fight between them. The next part where they run into to Morgan Elsbeth, and then Ezra and Sabine go up to fight those other 2 like dark troopers or death troopers. Death troopers. I don't know. I felt like it shouldn't have been that difficult for them.
Yeah.
Especially Ezra. I felt like that should have been an easier fight.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
He's fought them plenty of times before.
Yeah. There's the season 4 intro where he and Sabine go help Saw with the Kyber crystal, and there were death troopers everywhere.
Yeah.
So I felt like he should have been fine with that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think one thing maybe to explain that a little bit, obviously these death troopers, because I think there's 2 different ways to look at it. All the stormtroopers up to this point, you could say, oh, maybe all of them have this Night Sister magic that's keeping them alive or, making them stronger or whatever. Obviously, they cut them all down the second they get to the castle, right? And then they get, reanimated and kind of, come back to life. So, my take is, these are just, regular stormtroopers who are on this ship, right? They come here, they've been stranded here for years, whatever, but Thrawn's, kept them in check, right? He's still in charge here. And so the fact that they come back to life and they're these reanimated zombie stormtroopers, which I think is a really cool concept that it has been alive in Star Wars art for years and years and years, but now we have it in live action, which is really cool. That might be another part that kind of goes along with that, because you really don't see a lot of you see the glowing green eyes and they're moving like dead people or whatever, but the death troopers that they fight seem a little bit more undead than the regular stormtroopers, right? You're seeing they got pieces of their helmets broken off, and you can see all these their mouths open, and they look a little creepy. But I agree, it definitely could have been handled. It seems like something they could have handled a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So, which part of the conflict there when they're fighting is kind of my next point. This is the moment where Sabine uses the Force for the first time. So, they're fighting the death troopers. They've got her in a chokehold up against the rock or whatever, and she reaches out and is able to force her lightsaber over, turns it on, it stabs the guy in the head and kills him and frees herself. and then she uses the Force on the other one. Anyways, it's this moment where she's finally broken this barrier of like, I can't use the Force, to now I've used the Force. And it might be a hot take, but I don't know how I feel about that right now.
You didn't make it take.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
You didn't say anything yet.
No, I'm just saying I don't know if I like it. Like.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
So.
I'm in the same boat with you. I thought everything leading up to it was great. Right? They get into the castle and they're just wrecking Nick. I mean, of course, 3 lightsaber users against like some
Stormtroopers.
Like, of course, they're gonna absolutely destroy. And then the classic loophole, Star Wars loophole, when they slash a door control, but it closes.
You slash it, it closes. You slash it, it opens back up again. Yeah.
The classic Star Wars loophole. But that was, I just thought that was kind of funny. And then Ahsoka fighting with Morgan, and the whole like, again, it's kind of like when she fought her first in Mandalorian, it was a lot like samurai-esque again. Like it's keeping on par with the samurai like fighting schedule, and now that she has like this like blade, it kind of goes short. It's not a spear like she had before, right? Mm-hmm. It's this blade, and so it is a lot more like you would see just like 2 samurai fighting, right? Super cool. I thought it was great. And then they get up to the apex, and all of a sudden like they're fighting these troopers, and I was praying when I saw that he had held her up, and then all of a sudden Ezra gets disarmed, and then she's like choking, and she's like holding her hand. I was like, please don't, like, Ezra just throw her lightsaber or something, or force push the lightsaber. In her hand. I was like, please no, but then she did it, killed him, and then my biggest issue with that was that she had just unlocked the power to force her lightsaber to her hand, and then all of a sudden, like, she's pushing Ezra, like force pushing Ezra off a cliff to jump onto the Star Destroyer. Like, we'll get to that later. I just didn't see that happening, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of felt like it was like Rey, whereas all of a sudden, like, she just gets control of her powers, and now it's like, I can lift a mountain, It's like, no, that's not the point. It's like they're supposed to be training and disciplined enough so that you could be strong in it, right? And so,
I'm ready to rebuttal this.
Me too. I'm just saying. Well, I'll go first because I dislike it for a different reason. And maybe you'll like it, maybe you dislike it. I think, for me, like, it wasn't that she doesn't have training. Like, I just think the idea of Sabine being a Jedi and being herself as a Jedi is that maybe she doesn't need the Force as it's been seen previously, right? Like, for her, like, when we watch Trials of the Darksaber, right? Fen Rao shows up and gives her the little, like, pulse emitter thing, right? He gives her the little electro, like, whip thing, whatever, right? And so it's like, that's what I want to see, right? She's up against the wall, right? She's, like, pinned down. She can't use the Force. Then you got to adapt, right? You're going to be Sabine, and you're going to use your little wrist, like, grabber thing, right? Your whip to grab the lightsaber, bring it over, and you're going to use your resources because you're a Mandalorian, right? Are you a Mandalorian who knows how to use a lightsaber and understands the Force and uses the Force in a different way? Yes. So that's where I'm like 50-50. And that's why right now, I don't know if I can say I dislike it. I don't know if I can say that I like it. But I trust what Dave Filoni is doing right now, moving forward. But for me as a watcher, I think it would have been cooler to see Sabine. I think she's had the training. If she unlocks her Force powers now, like, okay. But I think it would have been cool to see her use her abilities as a Mandalorian and to be her own Jedi, right? Yeah. Instead of, okay, I've seen Luke Skywalker force his lightsaber when he was in the Wampus Cave, right? Like, I've seen all these people do the same thing. Maybe it's poetic to have her do it as well, but I would have liked to see her as a Mandalorian use her resources better. Yeah, so
that's more where I was leaning. Was she's her whole thing is like technician,
right?
Yeah. Like, she's got something up her sleeve, and I was hoping we'd see more of that throughout the show, like against Shin in the first episode, or against Shin in on Cedos. Just like use something that's gonna like throw her off her game. The sonic boom threw Ezra off in their training. Like, why not? Where's that up your sleeve? Where's the Fen Rao side of your training? So that was something I missed, but I thought Ezra was gonna force her to save her. That's
Yeah.
what
That's what I expected too.
But the only problem with that is you needed her to use the Force to get Ezra home, and so there's only like I don't know. I feel like when something clicks in my head, then I can get really good at it really quick. Like when you become fluent in a second language, once you get it, you get it.
Right.
And so obviously pushing that one might be a little extreme. I can
Well,
see the extremity in
yeah.
the push.
There was that's where
I can see that logic, but I mean, I saw Ahsoka Tano in season 1 and 2 do some pretty acrobatical, force enhanced things. You know, season 3 Ahsoka finale, season 3 Clone Wars finale. Ahsoka's on her own on an island taking care of 3 younglings. Like, come on, like that is crazy. And I get that there's training involved, 3 seasons of training, but like
multiple years of training.
But I don't know. I do think it was a little on the far-fetched side.
Agreed. Yeah.
But was it enough for me to lose like Jake said, lose my faith in what Dave is doing? No. But the execution, it's just like the hug in the 6th episode. It wasn't there, but now I had to get over it, right?
Right.
For the story and that kind of thing, and so it's hurting the overall score of the episode,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not diminishing the story of Sabine overcoming her demons. The more demons that we found in this episode in the series,
right?
But yeah, I did think, I was like, Ezra's going to force it to her. Ezra's going to do it. And then she did it, and I was like, okay, that's making the jump. That was the jump from, okay, Sabine's trying to use the Force she's used it now. Now what's the limit to it? And she's already forced Ezra. That could be impulsive. I mean, you've seen Ventress when the flashback of Ventress when she's coming back to her Night Sisters, and you see what happened to her master.
Right.
He gets killed, and she just goes crazy. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so Sabine could just been on an adrenaline high and say, hey, I just forced this. I'm feeling it right now. Like, I know what I'm doing. Go for it, you know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see it.
I can see you say, and that's the thing, too. Like, that, I wouldn't knock it down a point just for it being that way.
Yeah.
Right? And I was so against having Sabine since the beginning, be a Jedi because of what you're talking about, because she is a Mandalorian. She doesn't need to be a Jedi because she's not cool enough. It's not because she's not cool enough, right? It's not because, like, oh, to be a Jedi you have to, like, Jedi appear in the Mandalorian. It's like, she is her own person, and to have her be, like, a Mandalorian Jedi, that was where I was like, okay, if you're going to take her to be a Jedi, have her be a Mandalorian Jedi. Don't be, like what you're saying, don't have her just force the lightsaber. Have her be, like, just have her use her Mandalorian resources. Right, we saw her, what was the first time using the flamethrower?
Yeah, she used the flamethrower in
the last episode against Shin. It's like, that's the first time we see you use it in Clone Wars. That was like a constant move. Like
not to mention her jetpack is nowhere to be seen for the whole show.
Yeah,
which,
there's no jetpack.
Right? Which,
I don't know, I was against the jetpack for Mando and Boba Fett. I thought they don't do very good live action. It doesn't look great.
I thought it looked fine in Mando.
Whether it looks fine or doesn't look good, it's been a staple in the shows. So it's like, honestly, like the big reason that, and even in certain episodes of like The Mandalorian, it was like for the plot to like actually make sense, they had to take away the jetpack. Right. So it was like, I don't know, when that's the reason there's not a jetpack, is just for the plot. I'm like, you know, because ideally, if she has her jetpack, then dude, she just picks up Ezra and they just fly up onto the ship.
Exactly.
You know,
right. There you go. That could have been the saving grace for the jetpack.
That's what that's where I was going to come to it. I was like, you could have changed it that way, but again, it's because the way that Dave's portrayed the story is similar to what George Lucas has always said. Right? Everyone has some sort of connection to the Force, and your connection is either very like broadened, very like you receive a lot more of the Force because of your midichlorians, but doesn't mean if you don't have a large midichlorian count, doesn't mean that you can't be, right? Like you can't receive the Force. And so that's the point. That's at least that's the way I'm seeing it.
Well, but your issue with it too stems back to the whole premise of the show of why did Ahsoka feel like she needed to train Sabine in the first place?
Yeah.
Right.
Like why? Because like Hu Yang probably already put his foot down and stuff we didn't see. It's like, what the heck are you doing? Right?
Yeah,
lowest aptitude for the Force ever.
Lowest, right? It's like do you just feel this need to like pass on what you have? Is that what it is? Like,
no.
and it also is like a resemblance too of what we've pretty much just summed up is Sabine shouldn't be the typical Jedi because of the resources that she has. Well, Anakin wasn't the typical master, you know. Kenobi in the first movie was anticipating a Padawan, and then Yoda's like, "Oh yeah, this is Anakin's Padawan." He's like, "What the heck? I'm not supposed to train. I'm not. I'm the last person in the world that should be training someone, right?" And sure enough, Ahsoka has the most far-fetched Jedi Padawan experience out of any youngling ever, and now she has to. Now Sabine's in a similar situation. She's not like in an ideal situation, and so the resources could have made it more interesting, but I feel like there had to have been enough 6 years of training or development, however long it was, between the time when Ezra's gone and stuff, that she had done enough training or enough connection to the Force that it was enough to get what needed to be done in the moment.
Right. And I mean, again, in the end, like you said, it's not going to dissuade dissuade like my faith in what Dave Filoni's trying to do, right? He has this image in mind, and he has like what he's going to do with Sabine in the future. I trust him. Like, let's do it. Even though I didn't want to see Sabine as a Jedi, I'll be flat out right there, because I'm like, again, she doesn't need to be, but who knows, maybe she won't be.
This prequel purist right here.
Don't say like you're not in the same boat. Don't act like you're not in the same boat.
Well, yeah, but we had a conversation about it in a prior episode of who can be a Jedi, right? Dave Filoni said anyone can, midi-chlorians, all that kind of stuff, and so it's just not what we're comfortable with.
Right, exactly. But now we're gonna see, even if like even the term Jedi is gonna change. We'll see if that even becomes like, right? We have Jedi who taught in the in the temple, and then we have Boken Jedi, right? And then we're gonna see if Sabine becomes like the precursor of a new form of Jedi, right?
Also, very interesting hot take. Well, not hot take, just hot topic is we got Ezra, Ahsoka, and Sabine now. Ahsoka the Master, Sabine the Apprentice, Ezra the third party. Got a little Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, trio right there.
It's true.
Maybe we'll see something for season 2 if they can all reunite.
Yeah.
That brings us to the last part. Let's sum it all up real quick. Basically, what we didn't say already is Sabine throws Ezra to the ship, and she chooses
to
stay behind with her master.
Yep.
And that's kind of like the whole Ahsoka comes back for her, has her back, tells her that, I'll have your back forever. And Sabine's like, all right, I got your back forever. And they, they're stranded there. But the T6 comes, picks them up. They're making their efforts to, catch the Eye of Sion, and Thrawn, his cold speech.
Yeah, has just an absolute, just basically does what Thrawn does best, which is almost boast, but doesn't boast, right? He just goes...
Just twist the dagger a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I've already won, but let me kind of show it to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, it was crazy. He's all talking to Ahsoka about her being a Ronin, and how he's like,
cool.
so cool. This place of exile or whatever, might be where you belong.
Yeah. Well, he mentions Anakin.
Yeah.
He's like, this, like knowing your master. Like, I've never met you, and I probably never will. Mm-hmm. But knowing your master, this might suit you.
Yeah. This could be. Oh, the fact he goes, you could be like him, or that is who you could become. That was also kind of crazy too. Where it's like, who knows? Maybe if you end up getting back, we'll probably join forces. Kind of like almost alluding to.
But right now, it sucks to suck.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's almost alluding to
along with the Empire.
Basically, that was crazy. Yeah. And then have him blast off, and the fact of I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm thinking it was are they just going to get back on the Pergil and just jump?
That's my question.
Right, because it looked like they were so defeated at the end.
But it's
but they're like, you could just
find a whale.
Yeah, right.
No, wait for the whales to show up and then, calm them down again.
Not only do you have, Ezra's gone, but it's like, Ahsoka did it, maybe she can do it again, right? It's like, but the fact that the Eye of Sion leaves and they're like, oh, this is the game over, right? And it's like, okay, interesting. I want to see what's going to happen because of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it goes in the order of, they all hope was lost, right? Did you have something to say on top of that, sorry?
No, just going to the ending, because really the ending is just crazy cinematic. It's just scene after scene of this is where this character is, this is where this character is, and truly just checked all the boxes. So go for it.
Ahsoka, they're with the nomads again. They have two scenes. they start and end with Ahsoka and Sabine. First one, she looks out and she sees an owl, which you can only assume is Morai, the daughter, the symbol of the daughter, right? Who's from Clone Wars we know is bound to her pretty much. And then it goes to Shin. Shin pretty much now she's pretty much leading that band of bandits, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
which is what I thought was interesting too. If you look at like what she's wearing like black, like she's always wearing like she's not wearing like her traditional armor anymore. It's like she's wearing like a black cloak over it too. So it's like that foreshadowing as well. We're gonna see what happens, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. And then my favorite of all of them, it wouldn't have been my favorite if they didn't fumble it, but because they fumbled it, this is my favorite one, was Balin's. Standing in the palm of the father. We'll put a pic of this up, but it's probably the coolest shot in the entire show. That's my opinion. I thought it was amazing that he started to find what he was looking for.
And the fact that it connected to Mortis. Like, again,
we should have known. We should have known.
We should have known. That's where it was going.
That's on us. That's on us that we didn't know that Dave Filoni's going to bring back Mortis somehow.
Which, I mean, it connects. I mean, it makes, and the fact that it's like he's standing in the palm of the father, the son to his left is like completely intact, and then the daughter is just gone,
destroyed.
Yeah, destroyed.
Not there. Yeah.
So again, dark side, like the dark side is taken over. Father's neutral. We have light side of the daughter.
Well, the daughter's dead too, right? It's just Morai, and maybe that's the only thing that's left of the daughter right now.
I mean, everyone's gone.
And maybe that's what Thrawn's saying. Maybe that's her purpose there, is to reclaim her role there.
Could.
You know?
Well,
Could
I mean, the father's dead too.
Yeah, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Yeah.
But were they ever really alive? That's the thing. So, I mean, obviously you have the Morai that follows Ahsoka, and right, the life force of the daughter connected to Ahsoka, whatever, right? Like, you have that kind of going on throughout Clone Wars and Rebels in the series. But it's like, were the Mortis gods real, or do they just represent something, right?
Yeah.
And, again, another season will tell, or the future will tell. But the fact that that's where they went, and it was like, hey, throughout the entire series, Balin has been searching for something, and now we know it has to deal with, like, more than just, like, light side or dark side, but it's, like, with, like, the Force, and with, like, the universe in general, like, with these, like, godlike beings, like, from Mortis, like, was just a crazy finale, right? And something I, again, never noticed until the second watch was that he's standing in the palm of the father, pointing out kind of into the distance, and there's like a light shining on a mountain out, So, I don't know. I mean, just really cool what they're doing, and really looking forward to seeing what they do with Balin. And again, it's really sad that the actor passed away. He truly left such a big impact on Star Wars in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so it will be interesting to see moving forward what they do with that, because truly just an incredible actor and incredible character. So,
right. I mean, it goes to show how great it's all about storytelling. It doesn't matter about the coolness factor of like a character, or like how long they've been in the franchise or anything. Balin was only in 8 episodes, and he's already been the favorite of like many Star Wars fans. And the fact that he has some connection to like that deeper meaning. I mean, it adds to the mystery of like what's in this new galaxy, right? We're in a new place. We're in this new galaxy where there could be potential beings that are stronger than the Jedi, or stronger than the Sith, who are just an enigma. And it goes to show like, oh, but there is a connection to the past, to the other galaxy, right? And it's like, what is this? What is that blinking light? Is that I heard there was a doorway to the world between worlds. Is that doorway to the world between worlds? Is that like some people are saying it's like a prison that from the lore and all that stuff. And it's just, there's just so many like theories on it. And I thought that was awesome that Balin is going to be the one that's going to be searching for it, right?
Yeah.
And covering those mysteries.
Yeah. That's all I got for Balin. But the second to last one, which was what I wanted more than anything this entire show, was Ezra to come home. And he does. He shows up on Hera's ship, and it was better than the Sabine one. We need to get that out. It was better than the Sabine one because of what Hera says. She's like, she just says Ezra. Like, is that like Ezra? Like, and I think that was like I think that was the hitting home moment for me of all the all the endings of this episode was I wanted her to sprint to give him a hug again. I wanted that, or him to sprint to her. One of the two. But Chopper was the only one that even made a move, you know? And so that was a little bit of a letdown. I mean, do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But we didn't even see the hug. That was another thing. I was like, we didn't even see an embrace.
Yeah.
So that really sucked. That could have been huge. I mean, mother and son, like, yeah, I don't know. They fumbled on that one. Luckily, Balin's was so dope that like it helped fix that. But yeah, any other thoughts on that Ezra one before the Ahsoka part at the end? No. So yeah, Ahsoka and Sabine looking at what they're gonna do. They're gonna be moving around with these nomads for a little bit. I guess that's the premise. Now that they're stuck there, and when she turns around and leaves, you see Force Ghost Anakin, right? Looking over her, looking out for her. I think just goes to show that I think honestly her relationship with the Force was enhanced through the World Between Worlds, and I think it was honestly it was tarnished a little bit. Even though she was like an elite swordsman, Ronin, whatever you want to call her, had the Force, was beat Morgan Elsbeth in season 2 of Mando, was competed against Balin prior in episode 4. I don't know. I just feel like she became way closer to the Force, way stronger in it. And that's why, Force Ghost Anakin's probably going to be more of a piece in the story for season 2.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, kind of just like with the ending as well, like what you're talking about with Ahsoka, like I can't think of a better ending than having it end with Anakin, right? And I think that was something that for me, kind of looking at the show as a whole, is like the impact that Anakin had on it, right? Like it's felt like Disney has moved so far away from Anakin as the chosen one, and right now you have Rey and the next generation of Jedi, and the Skywalker line is ended, but it's still going on with Rey, even though she's Palpatine, whatever, right? Like the focus that they had on Anakin and his influence on Ahsoka and his influence on the franchise and on Star Wars was amazing. So I can't think of a better way to end the Ahsoka TV show, right? Or end season 1 of the Ahsoka TV show, we'll see, is to have, Force Ghost Anakin, right? Because Anakin might not, like, what is the World Between Worlds, right? Was it really Anakin that was there, or was it just, like, Ahsoka's imagination of Anakin, right? But now in the end, we know that he's looking over her, and he's seen what she's done, and again, right, he was redeemed by Luke Skywalker, right, and we see him in Return of the Jedi, right? He's back, but the fact that now it's like, hey, he's still looking over his apprentice, and maybe there's something new for Ahsoka and for Sabine and for the Star Wars universe and galaxy moving forward, I think is just honestly a great way to end the show. Do I agree 100% with how it ended, with Thrawn and Ezra coming back and Sabine and Ahsoka being stuck, and it just feels like a weird prisoner exchange and a really open-ended ending, Maybe it wasn't my favorite ending, but I think the fact that the last shot was Anakin Skywalker was really fitting, and I think it was honestly the best way to end the show. So
yeah, and then the reconciliation. I think the reconciliation of Ahsoka and Sabine, and then Sabine to Ahsoka, I think that made up for a lot of what happens too. It's like, yeah, because it's very open ended, and I love that because it means there's going to be more content. But like, I think the reconciliation between those two was kind of the closing to this story of them coming back together after who knows however long it was that they tried to be master and apprentice and it didn't work. I think that's the story Dave was trying to tell. More than anything was, yeah, the goal's to get Ezra, the goal's to stop Thrawn, but this is the story of how it all happened, and this is what we need. This is what needs to be resolved for this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also just an interesting aspect of it too, because I mean, we don't know what season 2 is going to be like, right? Other than the main plot point of how are Ahsoka and Sabine going to escape Peridia, right?
What are they going to do on Peridia with Balin and Shin?
Right.
Yeah.
Or like what's going to happen between those two? Like we don't know, and then all of a sudden it's like in the next galaxy, we see Thrawn go to Dathomir. It's like, what is Thrawn going to do? on Dathomir? What is he going to do with the Night Sisters? What are they going to do, right? So there's so many different plot points that can go, and I thought it was a great way to end it too, where it's like there's closure, but I feel like I mean, and this could be just my own opinion, but like Kenobi ended with the Force Ghost, right, with Qui-Gon, which I thought it was cool because he's like, I need to teach you some things, right? And then it's like now Ahsoka ends with Anakin's Force Ghost, and it's like, okay, Return of the Jedi, and there's just, I mean, bunch like Mortis arc as well, right? There's a lot of that aspect in it, and it's cool because it's like, okay, this is bringing back something like that we've seen before, but now what are you gonna do with it, right? End of Return of the Jedi was it was just like, oh, people are watching over you, right? Qui-Gon was there. I'm gonna teach Obi-Wan some things about the Force, and then Anakin's there. Oh, I don't even know if she saw me or did she see me. If she did, I'm just there smiling, right? Or I'm just there scowling, and then she turns back, and then I start smiling. It's like, it's. I'm just wanting to be like, what are you gonna do with it, right? I didn't spend $1 million studs in Lego Star Wars to unlock the ghosts for no reason, right? There has to be a reason why they're there.
I think you did, bro, just for no reason.
No, dude, it was because they are invincible and they don't die. Yeah, no, but in the real sense, it's like there is a reason why they're there, and I want to know why. Like, what's gonna be? It's all part of that like cosmic force enigma sort of thing. But, anyways, that is the ending of finale of the final episode of Ahsoka. Should we move on to ratings?
Let's do it.
Yeah. I can kick us off today. I mean, for this one, honestly, it checks a lot of the boxes for me, but it does leave me wanting more, honestly. I don't know if it checked all the boxes. It kind of left me with a lot of, like, you know, again, it was very open-ended. I want to know where the story goes next. I don't really know what the next thing that's coming out is. Is it going to be Ahsoka Season 2? Is it going to be a full-length movie? How does it go? And so, and then that on top of, you know, what I discussed briefly, it kind of felt like an 8-episode prisoner exchange. Like, hey, you get Sabine, Ahsoka, Baylan, and Shin, and we get Thrawn and Ezra, you know? And I was like, okay, what was the point? I really want to see Sabine and Ezra together. Like, if Ahsoka sacrifices herself for the next generation, for Ezra and Sabine together, right? Great. But it felt like Sabine worked really hard to get Ezra home, or to be with Ezra, honestly, and then she wasn't with him in the end, right? And for me, that would have, you know, resolved things a little bit more. That being said, I think there were just so many things that they did right that with this episode, I'd have to go with a 9.5. So, 9.5 out of 10 for me.
All right, so for me, I'm a 9.5 as well. There's only in my personal opinion, I'm already over the fact about the whole Force thing. I trust Dave and all that. I get the prisoner exchange thing, but it's not as big of a problem for me that there's such an open ending, because that's what season 4 finale of Rebels was. Like, Ezra's out there somewhere and I'm gonna find him. That's like the Sabine quote, right? And we've been sitting on that for 6 years. So as long as it doesn't take 6 years to figure out season 2, then I'm completely content with all of that. I think Thrawn was completely up to par. Morgan Elsbeth was great. The fighting was great. Baylan alone in that last cold thing, that's a +1 right there. I'm excited to see what Shin does. Obviously, Force Ghost Anakin at the end. Great point you brought up. The only thing was the Hera hug. That's a -0.5 easy. That they should not have been like. That's like my whole thing about the show is the detail orientedness of this show compared to the other shows. And that is a detail it's the same thing with the Sabine hug. Those are 2 details you just gotta get right. You gotta get them right.
It's the emotion of the family, right?
That is a family thing. Like, I could not imagine if I hadn't seen my mom in 6 years and she thought I was dead, and she slowly walks up to me and, you know, like this. I don't know. Like, that's just not how it is. And so that really rubbed me the wrong way. Unfortunately, I just really wished we got that reunion we wanted. Also, I mean, last chance to throw in Zeb right there. And didn't do it. So I don't know where you're going to throw him in. That's the thing. It would have been in episode 7, but that was probably the outside piece of the entire thing is if you want an Easter egg just for fun, like Mandalorian has for a million. Sorry, my hot take on Mando, but this just Easter eggs galore that just are trying to support the lack of everything else in it.
Story.
Yeah, but like Zeb and Purgil in Mando season 3 was the entire show, other than the finale.
Agreed.
And so, I felt like you could have stuck Zeb in somewhere. If he's a New Republic leader of some type, put him in for Carson or something.
Right.
But other than that, this episode specific 9.5 out of 10. It delivered, and I'm excited for where they're going next.
Yeah.
So,
well, I will also agree with the 9.5, just for the sake of just like, yeah, there's so many different places this could go, and like you were saying, I'm excited to see where the story goes. Right? We have Shin, we have Balin, we have Ahsoka and Sabine, we have Ezra and Thrawn, and the New Republic. Now that, like, because I can imagine the next thing that they're going to talk about, I hope Ezra and Hera is going to be like, oh, just to let you know, Thrawn's back, right? And then the entire thing is going to go, and then the entire New Republic is going to go nuts. And, maybe we're going to see, we just rewatched Harry Potter, but the whole thing where they're like, Voldemort's not back. Don't worry about it. And if you think he's back, then we're going to smack you, right? We're going to make sure that you don't think that. And I wonder if that's what the New Republic's going to take. It's going to be like the negligent will like, no, Thrawn's not back. He's not a real threat, right? I'm excited to see if that's the case, because if they go with that route, the New Republic's going to fall.
And it's the same cycle of the Empire thinking that Phoenix Squadron through 4 seasons of Rebels is an irrelevant threat,
right?
Until Thrawn shows up and he's like, dude, these Rebels are ripping you apart. I have to literally come down from Coruscant to come solve your problems. Like, take them seriously. And now they're like, we don't need to take care of this this little thing, whatever it is in Dathomir. It's like, okay, just let them trample you.
Right. And that's, Mon Mothma was the only one that's like, holy crap. Yeah, like, holy crap.
Don't let them trample you and turn into the First Order.
Yeah. Right. So that's...
You're gonna win, bro.
So that's the thing. Like, I'm excited to see where they continue to go with it, right? This is just hopeful, but I'm hoping to see more I'm hoping to see Luke Skywalker. Like, I'm hoping to see a connection with...
You can't put Thrawn in the universe, in the Star Wars galaxy, and not involve Luke Skywalker.
Right, who is now the Jedi Master, right? Like, the Jedi Grandmaster. He's building his Jedi Academy, and I'm just hoping to see, like, if they'll be involved, because that would just make it... That would just tie it with a bow, right? Like, I'm not making him like not having it Ahsoka, but then it's like it's actually Luke Skywalker featuring Ahsoka, right? I don't want that story, but I want like this kind of coming together of like forces. Like, this guy, he's bad news. We need all the help we can get, right? And so I'm just excited to see like where things go and see what Balin does. Like, is Balin gonna be the one to unlock a super bad superpower within that universe, right? Or is he going to find the secret to the universe? I don't know. It's just, there's just so many mysteries that I'm like, I just can't help but look. So
that's why I'm kind of shocked about you not liking how vague it is because we've been going from plot hole to plot hole. Like, that's what Dave Filoni's been doing to us is, 6 seasons of Clone Wars. Oh yeah, what the heck is the Siege of Mandalore? And then here's Rebels. And then you go back to Siege of Mandalore, and then you go find Ezra after you do 3 seasons of The Mandalorian and Andor and Kenobi and all these things. It's like.
But granted,
now we got a new one.
Well, granted, that's also because of the whole transitional period between George Lucas and
Disney?
And Disney, right?
Say it.
Disney. Just kidding. No, but I feel like, but that's true. You're right. There's still so much we don't know about like different like time periods, right? We don't know exactly what happened right after Return of the Jedi. We have what happens many years later.
Years, right?
Right.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years later. Same thing with Revenge of the Sith, right? As soon as that's over, we have a time skip. We know that Ezra and Luke and Leia are born, and then it's like 10 years later, or 15 years later, and then we see well, 10 years later we have Kenobi, and then 15 or so late years later we have Rebels, right? So there's a lot of little plot points that we're waiting for, but I'm excited to see, and so that's why I
Jedi
give it.
Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor.
Oh, Jedi, that's true. That's a good point. Those are 5 years after
Oh my god.
Rogue One. That's true.
Rogue One, right?
Well, Rogue One is like
Solo's movie and Rogue One's ending. You're right.
that is
I can't even right now.
all
We
right.
got our ratings.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's been it for Ahsoka reaction. Catch us for the next reaction series and more podcasts soon to come.
Yeah. May the force be with you.
Always.